Greetings, listeners. I have a new life story that I've brought to life for you. Enjoy watching it.
I always thought the worst thing in life was a broken engine on a Friday night when a customer is expecting a car by Monday. Turns out there are worse things, like sitting in Dr. Mitchell's office and listening to him explain the results of the biopsy I took 3 days ago. The word malignant sounded like squeaking brake pads, unpleasant and requiring immediate intervention. The doctor spoke calmly, methodically, as if reading an instruction manual, but I heard only scraps of phrases. Stomach cancer, stage 2, chemotherapy, prognosis cautiously positive. My hands, accustomed to precise nuts and bolts work, trembled as I tried to write down the names of the drugs and the dates of the next visits. My name is Thomas Harris. I'm 37 years old, and until this Tuesday, I considered myself a reasonably healthy man. I own a small auto repair shop in Bellevue, where I've been working for 12 years, first as a simple mechanic and for the last 5 years as owner. Business has been good, with plenty of customers, especially since I specialize in Japanese cars, and there are a lot of them in the area. My wife Dora works as an administrator at Dr. Reeves's dental clinic. We've been married for 8 years, no kids yet. We've been planning everything, putting it off for later. We have a modest house, but our own. The mortgage was paid off 2 years ago. Ordinary American middle-class family, nothing special. Stomach problems started about 3 months ago. First, it was just heartburn after spicy food, then pain, which I wrote off as stress and poor diet. Dora told me several times to see a doctor, but you know how it is. Men don't like hospitals, unless it's a real emergency. Last Monday, I was bent in half under the hood of a Toyota Camry. The client was more scared than I was. He thought I was dying in front of him. I had to go to the emergency room, and from there, for examination. And now I sit here and realize that my life is divided into before and after. Before, this is when the main problem was to find an original part for an old Lexus. After is when you're told how many courses of chemotherapy you have to go through and what side effects lie ahead. Doctor. Mitchell said the prognosis is not bad if you start treatment immediately. That modern medicine can work miracles. That the main thing is not to lose hope and to enlist the support of loved ones. By the way, where are you watching from and how much time do you have now? Perhaps you too have had moments when life abruptly changes direction. Tell us in the comments how you coped with unexpected blows of fate. Your stories will help not only me, but also other readers who may find themselves in similar situations. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of this story. It will be even more interesting, I promise. As I walked out of the clinic, I thought about how to tell Dora. We agreed to meet at home by 6. She had to be home early from work. I bought her favorite Chinese bowl at a restaurant near the house, thinking that good food would somehow soften the blow. Stupid, of course, but a man grasps at any straws when he doesn't know how to present bad news. Dora arrived at 7:30, tired after a long day. She'd been late a lot lately. Dr. Reeves was overhauling the clinic, and there was a lot of work to do. She kissed me on the cheek and went straight to the shower, saying she'd been dealing with a particularly nasty medical equipment supplier all day. I heated up the food, set the table, and waited, rehearsing phrases in my head. Dora, I have news for you. Darling, I was at the doctor's today. We need to have a serious talk. It sounded either too dramatic or too mundane for such a moment. She came downstairs in her house robe, hair still damp, and I realized that no amount of rehearsal was going to help. I just told it like it was, about the biopsy, about the diagnosis, about the treatment. Dora listened in silence, her face growing paler and paler. When I finished, she stared at her plate of teriyaki chicken for a long time, then looked up. What time is it? She asked quietly. The doctor says with the right treatment, the prognosis is good. A 5-year survival rate is over 80%. What about without treatment? Dora, why such questions? Of course I'll be treated. She nodded, but I could see that my words seemed to pass her by. The rest of the evening passed in a kind of unreal silence. We watched TV, but no one was following the story. Dora started to say something a few times, but then stopped talking. We went to bed early, and I felt her lying next to me, not falling asleep. I didn't sleep either. I was thinking about the upcoming treatment, about how our lives would change, about the fact that we would have to close the car service temporarily or find someone to replace it. In the morning, Dora left for work earlier than usual, saying they had an important meeting. She kissed me on the forehead and promised me that in the evening we would discuss all the details. When the treatment would start, what to prepare, how to organize the household. I drove to the service, hoping that work would help distract me. I had 3 cars in line for repair, and I decided to finish at least one of them before I started calling doctors and checking the schedule of treatments. The work was really helping. Under the hood of the Honda Accord, you could forget about everything but the faulty alternator. Hands made familiar movements, thoughts concentrated on technical details, and for a while the disease receded into the background. Maybe it was a psychological defense mechanism. I don't know, but at that moment it was important for me to feel useful and normal. The phone rang around 2 in the afternoon. I wiped my hands with a rag and answered it, expecting to hear the voice of another customer. "Tom, it's me," Dora said. She sounded strange, tense. "I need to have a serious talk with you." "Okay, I understand. Will you come home early? We'll discuss a treatment plan. I've already made an appointment with the oncologist for tomorrow." "No, Tom, not about that." She was quiet, and in that pause I sensed something was going wrong. "I can't take it. I can't be with a sick husband." At first I didn't understand what she meant. I thought it was fear, that she was having a hard time accepting the diagnosis. Like she needed time to get used to the idea. "Dora, I know it's a shock. I'm scared too. But we'll get through this together." "You don't understand," she interrupted. "I'm leaving. I've already packed my things. I don't need a husband that sick." I dropped the wrench and it clattered to the concrete floor of the garage. It echoed through the empty space, and I thought it was louder than thunder. "What? What did you say?" "I said I was leaving. Brad's waiting for me in the car. We're going to the airport. We have tickets to Cancun for 2 weeks. And when we get back, I'm filing for divorce." Brad. Brad Collins from the auto shop down the street. We'd known each other for about 5 years, occasionally asking for help when we were short on parts or needed advice on an unfamiliar model. Tight guy in his 40s, divorced, 2 kids from his first marriage living with their mother in Seattle. I knew he occasionally stopped by Dr. Reeves' clinic. He had wisdom teeth problems requiring surgery. Apparently, it wasn't just his teeth. "Dora, wait. Let's talk normally. You're in shock. It's understandable." "I'm not in shock, Tom. I'm just being honest. I'm not going to babysit a sick husband, change his diapers, and watch you die piece by piece. I'm 34 years old and I want to live. And with Brad, I can live. But the doctors say the prognosis is good." Shubertorn, "What if it's not? What if the treatment doesn't work? What if you turn into a vegetable?" "No, Tom. I didn't sign up for this when I got married." The line went dead. I stood in the middle of the garage with the phone in my hand and couldn't believe what I'd just heard. My wife, who we had been with for 8 years, who had sworn her love to the grave, who had promised to be there for me for better or for worse, had just told me she didn't need a sick husband and left on vacation with another man the day I learned of my diagnosis. I arrived home and saw that Dora had indeed packed her things. Half of her closet was empty, her makeup was gone from the bathroom, her favorite shoes no longer stood in the hallway. On the kitchen table was a note. "I'm leaving the car keys with you. I'll send you my lawyer's address later." That was it. 8 years of marriage fit into 2 sentences on a scrap of paper. I sat down on the couch and tried to make sense of what had happened. In less than 24 hours, my life had fallen apart completely. A cancer diagnosis and a divorce almost simultaneously. I thought about the fact that maybe Dora had wanted to leave for a long time, and the illness was just a convenient excuse. Or on the contrary, she was really scared and acted impulsively. Either way, I was going to have to fight cancer alone. The house was so quiet that I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. Strange, I'd never noticed that sound before. I guess Dora had always drowned it out with phone calls, music, television. Now it was as if the house had died with our marriage. The first chemotherapy treatment was scheduled for Thursday morning. Dr. Mitchell referred me to an oncologist doctor. Lee, a woman in her 50s with remarkably calm eyes and a way of speaking as if we were discussing the weather forecast rather than my chances of survival. She explained that the course would consist of 6 cycles, each 3 weeks long. The first 2 days of the cycle would be IVs in the hospital, then a week of pills at home, then a week off to recover. The plan was clear day by day, and it was a little reassuring. At least it was clear what was going on. On the eve of the first session, I walked around the house like a ghost. Dora was still in Mexico with her Brad, and the silence was weighing on me physically. I turned on the TV but couldn't focus on the programs. I tried to read car repair manuals. It usually calmed me down, but the letters blurred before my eyes. The refrigerator was filled with leftover Chinese food that I hadn't finished the night I'd told Dora about the diagnosis. I threw the containers away. The smell was a reminder of that conversation. Wednesday night, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw Barbara Stevens, our neighbor on the left. She is in her early 60s. Her husband died 3 years ago, no children, but has 2 cats and a garden that she tends with religious fanaticism. Dora and I weren't particularly close to Barbara, but we maintained a good neighborly relationship. We helped with the shopping when she was sick. She brought us vegetables from her vegetable garden. Thomas, she said, holding a glass mold covered with foil, I made lasagna. I figured you wouldn't have time to cook right now. I wanted to say it was okay, that I was doing fine, that I was coping, but instead I felt my throat constrict. Barbara was the first person in days who'd shown me simple human concern. Thank you, I said. That's very nice of you. Dora told me about your situation when she left. Barbara spoke cautiously, as if checking to see if she could talk about it. If you need help with shopping or anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I have plenty of time. That's how I found out that Dora wasn't shy about telling her neighbor about our divorce. I wonder if she presented it as a temporary solution to her illness or a permanent breakup. Well, it doesn't make any difference. The result is the same. Barbara, can I ask you a question? I said. What exactly did Dora say? The neighbor hesitated, clearly regretting having broached the subject. She said that you had a serious diagnosis and that she needed time to think about it, that she was staying with a friend temporarily. Barbara looked at me carefully. Why, was that wrong? A friend. So Dora had chosen to lie to her neighbor rather than admit the truth. Even she must have been ashamed of what she'd done. Not exactly, I said. Sanaram, but whatever. Thanks for the lasagna, really. Barbara nodded and turned to leave, but then she stopped. Thomas, I don't mind your business, but if you need help, you can come over. My husband had cancer too, and I know what it's like. Thursday morning, I arrived at the oncology department at Bellevue Hospital at 8 o'clock. The receptionist, a young woman of about 25 with bright pink fingernails, checked my ID and gave me a number. First time? She asked with a professional smile. Yes, it's not a big deal. The procedure takes about 4 hours. You can bring a book or tablet. Wi-Fi is available, 4 hours. I imagined sitting in a chair with an IV and thought that Dora was probably sunbathing on a beach in Cancun right now. There was no anger, just some emptiness and bewilderment at the absurdity of the situation. There were 10 patients in the procedure room, all connected to IVs. They ranged in age from the very young to the very old. Some were reading, some were sleeping, some were looking at their phones. Nurse Jennifer, a full-figured woman in her 40s with kind eyes, escorted me to a chair by the window. This is a good spot, she said as she set up the IV. You can see the parking lot, watch the people. It helps take my mind off things. The needle didn't hurt, but the sensation was unpleasant. Jennifer adjusted the speed of the medication and showed her the call button. If anything goes wrong, you press here. Nausea, dizziness, strange sensations. You say it all at once. Don't be a hero. The first hour went fine. I was really looking out the window, watching people in the parking lot. Some were hurrying to the hospital entrance with bouquets of flowers. Some were walking slowly, leaning on a cane. Life went on, and it was somehow soothing. On the second hour, the nausea started. Not severe, but unpleasant, like seasickness. Jennifer gave me a nausea pill and said it was normal. It's different for everyone, she explained. Some people don't feel anything at all. Others can't eat for a week. Your body is still figuring out what's being done to it. By the end of the session, I felt like I'd felt after a hard day's work, tired and a little stunned. Jennifer disconnected the IV, taped the injection site with a Band-Aid. Same time tomorrow, she reminded him. And remember to drink a lot, eat light meals, no alcohol. If the temperature rises above 38, call me immediately. I went home and went to bed at 2 in the afternoon. I woke up at 7 in the evening feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. My head hurt, there was a metallic taste in my mouth, and my hands were shaking. I tried to eat Barbara's lasagna, but after 2 spoonfuls, I threw up. The second session went easier. I already knew what to expect. Jennifer said it was a good sign. My body was adapting. The next week, the pills started. 5 in the morning, 3 in the evening. The side effects were tolerable. Fatigue, nausea in the morning, sometimes diarrhea. The worst was that food lost its flavor. Everything seemed cardboard or metallic. But the hardest part was not the physical ailment, but the loneliness. The house without Dora seemed alien. I caught myself waiting for the sound of her keys in the lock or her car in the driveway. I bought her favorite yogurt out of habit and only remembered at home that she no longer lived here. A week after my first round of chemo, I decided to go back to work. Not full-time, I didn't have the strength, but at least for a few hours. The auto shop had been closed the whole time, and I was worried about the customers. I had several cars to repair, and the owners were probably waiting. When I opened the garage, I found that someone had left a note under the door. Mrs. Parker, the owner of the Toyota Camry, wrote that she had picked up the car with a tow truck and taken it to another mechanic. She wasn't angry, just explaining that she couldn't wait indefinitely. 2 more notes were from other customers. I realized I was losing customers. It made me shake things up. Illness is an illness, but you have to live on something. Insurance covered most of the treatment, but not all of the expenses. Plus, working gave me a sense of normalcy that was sorely lacking. I started simple. I checked the condition of the cars that were left in the garage. Honda Accord with a faulty alternator, Nissan Maxima with transmission problems, an old Lexus with an oil leak. Familiar problems, understandable solutions. Under the hood of the car, I felt more confident than in the chemotherapy chair. I was able to work intermittently. I would spend an hour tinkering with the engine, then sit on the chair and rest. My hands got tired quickly, and my concentration wasn't what it used to be. I used to be able to take apart a complicated breakdown for hours, but now after half an hour, my head started to spin. But gradually the rhythm returned. I made a schedule for myself. Chemotherapy procedures on Thursdays and Fridays, weekends for recovery, Monday through Wednesday, light service work. Not full-time, but at least something. Barbara stopped by a few times to check in and see how I was doing. She brought food, some soup, some casserole, some vegetables from her vegetable garden. At first I was embarrassed to accept help, but then I realized that it was important for her to feel needed. After the death of her husband, she was left all alone, and taking care of me gave her meaning. "How are you feeling?" she asked, looking me over. "I'm fine," I replied. "I'm getting tired faster, but I'm hanging in there." "Igarum, have you heard from Dora?" "No, I don't expect to." Barbara shook her head, clearly disapproving of my ex-wife's behavior. "In my day, wives didn't leave their husbands because they were sick," she said. "My Ralph was sick for 2 years, and I never left him alone for a day." I didn't argue, though I realized times had changed. Dora had grown up in a different world, where personal happiness was more important than loyalty and duty. I can't say she's wrong. We just happened to be different people at a critical moment. 3 weeks later, the second cycle of chemotherapy began. The procedures were easier to bear. My body was used to the drugs, but fatigue became chronic. I slept 10 hours a day and still felt wrecked. Doctor Lee said it was normal. The treatment was serious, and the body needed time to recover. Customers began to return to the auto shop. First, old acquaintances, those who knew about my illness and decided to wait. Then new ones appeared. Apparently, word of mouth was working. I was honest with people. I warned them that I wasn't working at full capacity and that deadlines could be delayed. Most people were understanding. Jim Rodriguez, the owner of Nissan Maxima, became something of a friend during this time. He's a man in his 50s, works as a truck driver, has a wife and 3 kids. When he heard about my situation, he started stopping by just to talk. "How you doing, buddy?" he asked, sitting down on an overturned bucket next to the workbench. "Little by little," I replied. "Your wife never showed up, did she?" "No, she won't." Jim shook his head. That's bullshit. My grandfather had cancer and my grandmother took care of him like a child. And this one of yours?" He waved his hand. I like that Jim didn't interfere with advice or try to console me. He just stated the facts and offered male solidarity. Sometimes he'd bring coffee from the neighborhood diner, and we'd drink it in silence, each of us thinking about something else. Work really helped take my mind off my illness. Under the hood of a car, you could forget about chemotherapy, about divorce, about an uncertain future. The engine either works or it doesn't. The breakdown could be found and repaired. Everything is simple and straightforward, unlike the rest of life. But in the evenings, alone in an empty house, I would sink back into heavy thoughts. What will happen if the treatment doesn't work? How could I go on living without the Dora I had grown accustomed to over 8 years? Was it even worth the struggle if the person closest to me ran away at the first sign of trouble? These thoughts came in waves, especially in moments of extreme fatigue after the treatments. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling like the loneliest person in the world. The phone lay nearby, and sometimes I thought about calling Dora. But what to say? Beg to come back? Tell her how hard it was to be alone? No, I still had a vestige of pride. Gradually, I got used to the new reality. Wake up in the morning, breakfast, pills. If it's procedure day, hospital, if not, car service. In the evening, dinner, often cooked by Barbara, TV, sleep. A simple routine, but it gave support in the chaos of a changed life. The second cycle of chemotherapy came to an end, and Dr. Lee scheduled a follow-up examination. She needed to see how her body was responding to the treatment, to see if the tumor was metastasizing. The results were due in a few days, and the days dragged on for an agonizingly long time. "Doctor," Lee announced the results of the follow-up examination in her usual calm tone, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. "The tumor has shrunk by 30%, she said, showing me the images on the large monitor. "That's a very good result for 2 cycles. The treatment is working." I stared at the black and white spots on the screen and tried to figure out exactly where my disease had receded. The doctor pointed her finger at the dark areas, explained the sizes and boundaries, but it still looked like an abstract painting to me. The main thing was different. For the first time in 2 months, I had a reason for optimism. "So there's a chance?" I asked. "More than good chances. If the momentum continues, we can expect a complete remission." Dr. Lee made notes on the chart. "We'll proceed as planned. 4 more cycles, then a follow-up." Leaving the hospital, I felt something akin to joy for the first time in a long time. Not euphoria. I realized that there was still a lot of treatment ahead, but a calm confidence that the fight was worthwhile. I wanted to share the good news with someone close to me, but there was no one. Dora was still out of touch. My parents hadn't been around for years, and I hadn't made any special friends. I called Barbara and told her about the test results. She was even happier than I was. "You see," she said into the phone, "I told you everything would be fine. My Ralph didn't go to treatment very well at first, but then he did. But then his heart gave out. But that's another story." Her words about her husband somewhat cooled my enthusiasm, but I realized that Barbara simply does not know how to rejoice without remembering his loss. Grief changes people, makes them see tragedy, even in good news. The third cycle of chemotherapy began with an unpleasant surprise. Jennifer warned that the drug would be changed. Another component, more aggressive, would be added. "The side effects may increase," she explained as she prepared the drip, "but the efficacy is also greater. Dr. Lee thinks your body is ready for more intensive treatment." She was right about the side effects. After the first treatment, I threw up in the hospital, which had never happened before. At home, it was even worse. The nausea came in waves. I felt so dizzy that I had to hold on to the walls. I couldn't eat anything but dry crackers and tea. But most unpleasant of all, his hair began to fall out. It had only been thinning before, but now it was left in strands on my pillow. In the morning, I looked in the mirror and saw a man with bald spots and a pale, gaunt face. I looked about 50 years old, though I was not yet 40. It became very difficult to work in the car service. I quickly tired, could not lift heavy parts, several times almost fainted, bending over the engine. Jim Rodriguez started coming by more often, sometimes helping with simple jobs. "You look like shit, buddy," he said bluntly one day. "Maybe you should take a break." If I take a break, the customers will leave for good, I said. Half of them are gone already. So be it. Health is more expensive. That's easy to say. Jim worked for a transportation company and got paid regardless of how he felt. I have my own business. I don't work, I don't eat. The insurance covered medical treatment, but not running costs. I didn't have a mortgage anymore, but utilities, taxes, food, all of it required money. By the end of the third week of the cycle, I realized that I could no longer work at the same pace. I had to make the hard decision to temporarily close the service and focus on treatment. I called all the customers who had cars in repair, apologized, and offered to pick up the cars. Most were sympathetic. Mrs. Chen, the owner of the Lexus, even offered to wait until I recovered. "You're a good craftsman," she said, "and there aren't many of those nowadays. Get well and come back." But two customers reacted aggressively. One of them accused me of messing with people's heads, taking money and not doing the work. The other threatened to sue. I explained that I was ready to return the advance payment, but that didn't calm them down. Probably people had their own problems, and my disruption of plans was the last straw. The fourth cycle went even harder. Nausea and weakness were joined by digestive problems and constant muscle pain. I lost 8 pounds and looked like a skeleton covered in skin. Barbara switched to daily visits, bringing broths and pureed soups, the only thing I could eat. "Maybe we should take a break from the treatment," she suggested one day. "No," I replied. "The doctor said I shouldn't interrupt the course. The tumor might start growing again." "But you're dying before your eyes." "Well, she's dying too. Faster than me, I hope." It was a race to see who would give up first, me or the cancer. So far, the cancer was losing, and I was willing to endure any agony as long as the trend continued. In early May, as I was preparing for my 5th cycle, something happened that I never expected. I was at home recovering from another procedure when there was a knock at the door. I thought it was Barbara with another meal, but through the peephole I saw 2 policemen. Opened the door on the chain. "Mr. Harris?" asked the older man, a 45-year-old man in a Bellevue Police Department uniform. "Yeah, that's me." "Detective Brown, this is my partner, Detective Wilson. Can we come in? We have some news for you about your Uncle Frank Harris." Uncle Frank. I haven't seen him in 3, maybe 4 years. My father's brother, 12 years older. Bachelor all his life, worked as an engineer for Boeing, retired about 10 years ago. He lived alone in a big house in Somerset, collected antique clocks, and hardly talked to anyone. We occasionally called each other on holidays, but we never had a close relationship. I took off the chain and let the cops in. "What about Uncle Frank?" I asked, sensing bad news. Detective Brown pulled out a notebook. "Mr. Francis Harris was killed last night in a car accident on Highway 455. Collision with a truck. Instantaneous death. We contacted you because you're listed in his will as the sole beneficiary." I sat on the couch, trying to digest the information. Uncle Frank is dead. I was all alone in the world. No parents, no wife, now no uncle. And for some reason, he left me an inheritance, even though we barely spoke. What exactly did he leave me?" I asked. "A house, a car, and bank accounts," the detective replied. "The exact amount will be determined by a lawyer. Here are his contacts." He handed me a business card. "Gerald Fisher, probate attorney. When can I see him?" "Anytime. He's already on it and is waiting for your call." The policeman left, leaving me alone with the unexpected news. Uncle Frank had always seemed strange to me. Withdrawn, unsociable, obsessed with his watch. But apparently he remembered more about his only nephew than I realized. I called the lawyer the next morning. Mr. Fisher turned out to be a man in his 60s with a formal but friendly tone. "Mr. Harris, my condolences," he said. "Haha, your uncle was a client of mine for many years. He spoke of you often." "Did he?" "We hardly ever spoke to each other. Nevertheless, he thought you were the only worthy heir. The will is very clear. You get a house in Somerset worth about $400,000, a 2021-year-old Cadillac Escalade, and bank savings of $98,000. I almost dropped the phone. Almost $500,000. For a man who just yesterday was thinking about how to pay his bills, that was incredible. What do you have to do to file an inheritance? Standard procedures? Filing documents with the court waiting for a period for possible claims of other heirs, formalizing the title. The whole process usually takes 2 to 3 months. But in your case, everything should go smoothly. There are no other claimants. We agreed to meet next week. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time, trying to realize what had happened. Life had changed direction again, only this time for the better. That evening, I told Barbara about the inheritance. She was almost as happy as if she were family. You see, she said, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. With one hand he gives sickness, with the other he sends support. I wasn't particularly religious, but at that moment, Barbara's words made sense. Uncle Frank's inheritance meant financial freedom. I could go through treatment without thinking about money. I could afford a long recovery. I could even consider moving to a better neighborhood. What are you going to do with your uncle's house? Barbara asked. I don't know yet. Maybe I'll sell it. Or maybe I'll move there. It's a quieter neighborhood, cleaner air. That's not a bad idea, especially after what you went through in that house. She meant Dora. It's true, every corner of this house reminded me of our marriage, our plans together, how everything fell apart overnight. Perhaps a change of scenery would do some good. A week later, I went to see Uncle Frank's house. The lawyer gave me the keys and an address in Somerset. It was about 20 minutes from Bellevue, in a more upscale and quieter part of town. The house was bigger than I expected. It was 2 stories with a large lot, a 2-car garage, and a well-kept garden. It was neat and tidy inside. Uncle Frank was obviously a stickler for order. The furniture was good but old-fashioned. In the living room there were glass cases with clocks, from Victorian pocket watches to modern Swiss chronometers. What struck me most was the library on the second floor, an entire room filled with books from floor to ceiling, technical reference books, biographies, classic literature, books on the history of watchmaking. On the desk were neatly folded documents, pens and a cup, all as if the uncle had just left and would be back soon. In the bedroom, on the nightstand was a framed photograph, my parents and me as children. I was about 10 years old. We were on a picnic somewhere by the lake. Uncle Frank was in the photo too, standing off to the side, a little aloof but smiling. It was strange to see that picture here. So he really did remember more about the family than he was showing. I spent about 2 hours in the house looking around the rooms, trying to see if I could live here. The house was nice, quiet, spacious, everything in great condition. But I wasn't ready to move in just yet. The treatment wasn't over yet, and it was better to stay close to the hospital and familiar doctors for the time being. When I got home, I found a message on my answering machine from my lawyer. Mr. Harris, Mr. Fisher's voice said, there's another detail about the inheritance that I forgot to tell you. In your uncle's safe deposit box, we found a letter for you. If you wish, you may pick it up on your next visit. A letter from Uncle Frank. I wonder what he wanted to tell me. We were never close, but he must have had some thoughts about me that I didn't realize. The next day, despite being weak after another chemotherapy treatment, I went to see my lawyer. Mr. Fisher handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in my uncle's neat handwriting. I opened the letter at home. Uncle Frank wrote, Dear Thomas, if you are reading this letter, it means that I am no longer here. I hope that my inheritance will help you at a difficult time in your life. I know we didn't communicate much, but I always kept up with your affairs. Your father, my younger brother, was a good man, and I see his best qualities in you. You work honestly, you don't complain about hardships, you build your life with your own hands. I have lived alone all my life, and sometimes I regret it. Don't repeat my mistakes. Find people you care about and cherish them. Money and possessions are good, but without loved ones, life is empty. I bought a house in Somerset dreaming of a big family, which I never got. I hope you can fill it with laughter and joy. Be happy, nephew. Love, Uncle Frank. As I read the letter, I felt a lump in my throat. Turns out Uncle Frank wasn't as reclusive as he seemed. He just didn't know how to show his feelings, but the memory of his family was important to him, and he somehow knew about my problems, even though I hadn't told anyone about the diagnosis or the divorce. The inheritance changed all my plans. Now I could take my time at work, I could heal in peace, I could think about the future without the constant fear of finances. For the first time in months of illness, I felt that I had not only problems, but also opportunities. The probate process was more complicated than I had anticipated. Mr. Fisher explained that I had to file paperwork with the probate court, wait for a notice to be published in the newspaper in case there were other claimants, get an appraisal of the property, and only then title the property. The whole process was supposed to take at least 2 months. In the meantime, can I use the house? I asked at another meeting with my lawyer. Formally, no, but in fact, no one forbids you, answered Mr. Fisher. The house is empty, and you are the only heir. I went to Uncle Frank's house several times, gradually getting used to the idea that soon it would be my property. Each visit revealed new details about the life of a man I didn't know at all. The basement revealed a well-equipped workbench with tools for repairing clocks. In a closet on the second floor were boxes of family photos, including many of my parents and me as children. One picture in particular struck me. Uncle Frank holding me in his arms. I look about 3 years old, smiling and reaching for his glasses. He's smiling too, and there's a tenderness in his eyes that I've never seen in him before. Maybe he really wanted to have a family, but something went wrong, or maybe it was just a different time. Men of his generation weren't used to showing feelings. The fifth cycle of chemotherapy was harder than the previous ones. By this time, my body had accumulated treatment fatigue, and each treatment became more and more difficult. Jennifer said it was normal. There was no cumulative effect. One more cycle, and that's it, she encouraged as she set up another IV. Then a checkup, and if all is well, we can take a break. A break. I had been dreaming of that word for months. The opportunity to wake up in the morning and not think about the hospital, not swallow pills, not fight nausea, just to live a normal human life. On the days that my health allowed, I started planning a move. My current house was bought with a mortgage 8 years ago when Dora and I first got married. It had seemed perfect then. 3 bedrooms, a small lot, a quiet neighborhood. But now every room was a reminder of a broken marriage. The bedroom where we'd slept together for 8 years. The kitchen where we'd planned the future. The garage where Dora parked her car. I contacted a realtor, a woman named Patricia Brown, who worked at an agency near the auto repair shop. She was about 45 years old, energetic, talkative, and in the habit of dropping compliments on and off. Beautiful house, she exclaimed, walking through the rooms with a clipboard. Great location, good condition. There's a demand for this kind of real estate on the market right now. How much do you think it could be worth? If it sells quickly, 280, maybe 300,000. If you take your time and work with buyers, 320, even 340. The market's in the seller's favor right now, 300,000, plus almost $100,000 from Uncle Frank, plus a house in Somerset worth 400,000. That adds up to about $800,000. That was a lot of money for a mechanic from Bellevue. I could afford to stay out of work for a year or two. I could invest some of it. I could open a new, more modern auto shop. There's one condition, I said to Patricia. I'm undergoing treatment now and I can't do shows all the time. Can you organize everything in such a way as to minimize my distractions? Sure. She was writing something down on a clipboard. I'll coordinate all the viewings myself. All you have to do is sign the sale papers. We agreed on a price of $320,000. Patricia said that at that price the house would sell in a month and a half at the most. Barbara took the news of the move sympathetically but sadly. Of course you need a change of scenery, she said, stirring soup in my kitchen. But I'm used to taking care of you. Who's going to check to see if you're eating properly now? Barbara, you've been a great help to me, I said. I don't know how I would have managed without you. But I'll only be 20 minutes away in Somerset. We can meet. Not the same. She sighed. But I understand. This house is like a reminder of a bad time for you. She was right. Every day I spent in this house, I thought about Dora. Not because I missed her, no. That feeling went away the first month after she left. It was just habit. 8 years of life aren't erased in a few months. I caught myself cooking meals for 2, buying groceries that Dora loved, waiting to hear the sound of her car in the driveway. The first potential buyers showed up a week after the ad was posted. A young couple, Michael and Jennifer Clark, both working in IT, were planning to have children. They loved the house, especially the 3rd bedroom, which they wanted to convert into a nursery. Why are you selling? Jennifer asked, looking at the kitchen cabinets. I'm moving to another neighborhood, I answered evasively. Patricia quickly turned the conversation to technical details: the condition of the roof, the age of the water heater, the neighborhood's plans for infrastructure. She was professional and skilled at avoiding uncomfortable questions. The Clarks made an offer the next day, $310,000, which was close to the asking price. Patricia's advice was to accept. Good people, serious intentions, quick deal, she explained over the phone. They've already approved the mortgage. They can close the deal in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Just in time for the end of the 6th cycle of chemotherapy. Symbolically, it would be the end of treatment and the beginning of a new life in a new home. I agreed to the Clark's offer. The appointment was set for Friday, the day of my next treatment. I had to postpone the meeting with my lawyer until the evening. After the hospital, I usually felt broken, but it was within my power to sign a few papers. The 6th and final cycle of chemotherapy began in mid-June. Jennifer said it was the finish line. After this cycle, there's a follow-up exam, she explained. If the results are good, we switch to maintenance therapy, every 3 months with IVs and regular tests. Every 3 months instead of weekly treatments sounded like heavenly music. I was already used to the hospital routine, to the smell of disinfection, to the faces of the nurses, but I dreamed of the day when all this would be a thing of the past. My condition was habitually bad: nausea, weakness, metallic taste in my mouth. But now I knew it was only temporary. In a little while, my body would start to recover. My hair would grow back, my appetite would return, my strength would be restored. Meanwhile, the probate proceedings were progressing as planned. Mr. Fisher reported that the waiting period for possible claims was over, no one showed up, and the final documents could be filed. Everything should be ready by the end of July. When would the bank accounts be available? I asked. At the same time as the house, but if you have an urgent expense, I can pre-authorize access to a portion of it. There were no urgent expenses. On the contrary, I was saving on everything in preparation for the move. The car repair shop remained closed. I planned to open it in the new house, using Uncle Frank's garage as a workshop. I was at my uncle's house almost every day now. I gradually cleaned up his personal belongings, decided what to keep, what to throw away, what to give to a museum or collectors. Watches, for example, cost serious money. Some pieces were valued at several $1,000s each. But most importantly, I was getting used to the idea that soon this would be my home. I planned where I would put my furniture, how I would organize my workplace, where I would receive clients. I could make a great workshop in the basement. There was already good ventilation and wiring. Jim Rodriguez offered several times to help with the move. "I've got a truck," he said, "and a couple guys from the company. For a beer, we'll help you move your stuff." "Thanks, but it's too soon," I said. "First I'll finish my treatment, then I'll do all the paperwork." "Whatever you say, but the offer still stands." It was good to know that there were people willing to help. In the months I'd been sick, I'd realized who was a friend and who was just an acquaintance. Jim, Barbara, that's all I had left. But these people were reliable. The last chemotherapy treatment went almost unnoticed. I sat in a familiar chair by the window, looking out over the parking lot where I had watched people for the first time 6 months ago, and thought about how my life had changed. Back then, I was a scared man with a crumbling marriage and an uncertain future. Now a man who had been through a major trial and was preparing for a new phase of life. Jennifer disconnected the IV and traditionally taped the injection site with a Band-Aid. "That's it," she said. "Come back in a week for a checkup. In the meantime, rest and get your strength back." "Thank you for everything," I said. "Shutianam, you've really helped me through this time. That's our job. But it's nice to see the treatment going well. You have an excellent chance of going into complete remission. Full remission." Words I was afraid to even think 6 months ago. Now they sounded very real. Walking out of the hospital for the last time as a chemo patient, I felt strangely relieved. Not euphoria. I realized that the disease could return, that there were years of checkups and constant vigilance ahead. But a certain chapter of my life was closing, and that was important. At home, I called Barbara and told her about the completion of treatment. She suggested we celebrate by cooking something special for dinner. "Nothing heavy?" I asked. My stomach wasn't ready to experiment yet. "Shaktiwampun. Chicken noodle soup," she decided. "Just like when I was a kid. And apple pie." We had dinner in my kitchen, which was to become the Clark family kitchen in a few weeks. Barbara was talking about her plans for the summer, wanting to visit her sister in Portland, since it had been so long since we'd seen each other. "What are you planning?" she asked. "To move in, get settled, and slowly resume work. See how my body recovers. And personal life? Are you thinking about dating?" That question caught me off guard. To be honest, I haven't really thought about it. The last few months had been all about survival, physically and emotionally. Thoughts of a new relationship seemed premature. "Not yet," I answered. "Not yet. I understand. But don't shut yourself off. You're a young man with your whole life ahead of you." The follow-up examination was scheduled for Monday. 3 days of waiting dragged on for an agonizingly long time. I realized that the results would largely determine my future. If the treatment helped, I could make long-term plans. If not, I would have to keep fighting. Sunday night, I went to Uncle Frank's house and walked around the rooms for a long time, imagining how I would live there. In the living room, I would put my couch and TV. In the library, I'll organize a study. There's a big desk and good lighting. I'll leave the bedroom on the second floor as it is. My uncle's furniture is high quality and comfortable. The basement appealed to me most of all. Uncle Frank used it as a watch repair shop, but I could turn it into an auto repair shop. Set up a hoist, organize the tool and parts areas. Customers could drive right up to the garage without disturbing the neighbors. The Somerset neighborhood was home to people with nice cars. Lexuses, BMWs, Mercedes. If you establish yourself as a reliable craftsman, you could count on a steady clientele. Maybe even expand the business. Hire an assistant, specialize in premium brands. Standing in Uncle Frank's basement among his tools and watch movements, I felt something akin to anticipation for the first time in a long time. Not just hope, concrete plans and a desire to realize them. Tomorrow, the results of the examination. And the day after tomorrow, the start of a new life. Whatever those results might be. "Doctor." Lee announced the results of the checkup with a faint smile on her face. A good sign for someone with her professional restraint. "The tumor has shrunk by 75%, she said, showing the fresh scans next to the old ones. "There are minimal residual changes, no metastasis." That's an excellent result. I looked at the black and white images of my insides and tried to find the difference between before and after. To a layman, everything looked the same, but the doctor was pointing her finger at barely noticeable spots. "So, am I healthy?" I asked. "It's too early to talk about a full recovery," she answered cautiously. "But there is a steady remission. We switched to supportive therapy, control examinations every 3 months, tests every 6 weeks, and one course of prophylactic chemotherapy in 6 months. One course in 6 months sounded a lot better than weekly treatments. I could plan my life months ahead without being tied to a hospital schedule. What about physical activity? Work? Gradually return to normal activity. The body recovers slowly, but if you don't force things in 2 or 3 months, you will feel like before." Leaving the hospital for the first time in 6 months, I felt myself not as a patient, but as an ordinary person with good news. I wanted to share my joy with someone, but the list of people close to me was short. Barbara, Jim, no one else. Dora is somewhere far away, probably not even remembering that I was supposed to have the results of my treatment announced today. I called Barbara right from my car in the hospital parking lot. "Good news," I said. "The treatment has worked. It's in remission." "Oh, thank God," she exclaimed. "I was so worried. So now you can plan your move?" "Yes. Next week we close on the sale of the house. 2 weeks after that we'll formalize the inheritance. By the end of July, I'll be a full owner of a house in Somerset." "That's great. And tonight we're celebrating. I'm going to make your favorite meat and potatoes." Barbara's learned my tastes better in the last few months than Dora did in 8 years of marriage. Maybe because she took care of me during a difficult time when every bowl of soup was an act of compassion. The signing of the papers to sell the house took place at Patricia Brown's office, with all parties involved. Michael and Jennifer Clark looked excited and happy. This was the first real estate for them. I remembered that feeling 8 years ago when Dora and I bought the same house. Back then it felt like we were buying it forever. "Congratulations on the sale," Jennifer said as she shook my hand. "We hope we'll be as happy here as you are." I nodded, not correcting her about happiness. Let a young family start with good thoughts of home. My problems shouldn't poison their hopes. Patricia handed me a check for $295,000, the total after deducting fees and expenses. That's a lot of money to start a new life. When are you vacating the house? Michael asked. A week from today. Most of the stuff was already packed. Actually, there wasn't much to pack. We'd accumulated a lot of stuff over the years with Dora, but I kept only the essentials. Clothes, papers, tools, a few pieces of furniture that I liked personally. The rest, kitchen utensils, decor, Dora's stuff, was left to new owners or sent to charitable organizations. It was strange to sort through common things. This sofa we picked out together at the furniture store, arguing about the color of the upholstery. These curtains Dora bought for the living room, spending a whole day looking for the right shade. A refrigerator filled with magnets from trips around the state. Each item held a memory of a life together. But now those memories, no longer warmed, only reminded her of loss. Jim had really helped with the move. Arrived Saturday morning with a truck and two guys from his company, Mexicans named Carlos and Rafael, who worked quickly and neatly. That's all of them? Jim wondered, looking at the stacked boxes and furniture in the garage. A fresh start, I explained. That's right. Junk is just a nuisance. The move took 4 hours. Most of the time was spent assembling the furniture in the new house. Some things had to be disassembled for transportation. By evening, I was sitting in the living room of Uncle Frank's house, now my house, drinking beer with Jim and his helpers. Nice place, Jim said, looking around. Quiet, spacious. It's a good place to recover from an illness. Yes, it would be quiet enough to work in, and the neighbors won't complain about the noise from the car service. When are you planning on opening? In a month or two. I'll set up the shop first, then I'll start taking customers. When Jim and his men left, I was alone in the new house. It was different from Bellevue, deeper, quieter. There was no traffic noise, only the occasional car driving down the neighborhood street. The house smelled of wood and old books. Nice, homey smells. I walked through the rooms imagining how I would furnish each one. In Uncle Frank's library, I'd put my computer and business papers. I'd turn one of the bedrooms on the second floor into a guest room in case someone wanted to stay the night. The basement will become a workshop. There was already a workbench and good lighting. I was most impressed with the kitchen. It was spacious with a large table and convenient cabinets. Uncle Frank obviously liked to cook, with quality knives, pots, and pans, and all sorts of gadgets in the drawers. I'd never been much of a cook, but in a kitchen like this, I wanted to try to make something myself. I heated up a frozen pizza for dinner. My stomach wasn't ready for experimentation yet, and ate it while looking out the window at the manicured garden. Uncle Frank had obviously taken care of the plants. The lawn was neatly trimmed, the flower beds weeded, the trees pruned. I was going to have to learn how to do all this, or hire a gardener. The first night in the new house, I didn't sleep well. Unfamiliar sounds and creaking floorboards, the sound of leaves outside the window, the distant train horn, did not let me relax. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up from some rustling in the walls and listened for half an hour until I realized that it was mice. It's an old house. What's so surprising? In the morning, Barbara called me to ask how the first night had gone. It was okay, I said. I'm not used to it yet, but it's a nice house. Give me your new address. I want to come and see how you're settling in. I dictated the address and explained how to get there. Barbara promised to come next weekend with home-cooked food and flowers for the garden. The next few days were spent settling in. I bought the little things I needed for the house, sorted through Uncle Frank's clock collection, and planned to convert the basement into a workshop. On Wednesday, the insurance appraiser arrived. The house was in excellent condition, and the insurance was even cheaper than I had expected. The probate was finally finalized on Friday. Mr. Fisher handed me the title deeds and the keys to the safe deposit box. Congratulations, Mr. Harris, he said. You are now the full owner of your uncle's entire estate. The house, the automobile, the bank accounts are all yours. Uncle Frank's car, a Cadillac Escalade, was in the garage under a tarp, black, almost new, with leather interior and every possible option. For a mechanic used to use cars, it was a luxury. But I liked the car. Solid, reliable, suitable for the new status of the owner of a house in a prestigious neighborhood. On the weekend, as promised, Barbara arrived. She brought a casserole, salad, and a bouquet of flowers from her garden. "What a beautiful house," she exclaimed as she walked through the rooms. "And what order? Your uncle was a neat man." Yes, I didn't even have to clean much. Just put away my personal things. We had lunch on the terrace behind the house. Uncle Frank had built a wooden veranda overlooking the garden. Barbara told us news from the old neighborhood, who was buying what, who was moving, who was sick. The familiar neighborhood chronicle that had seemed boring before, but now sounded like news from a former life. Had you heard from Dora? She asked in the middle of the day. No, I don't expect to. Maybe it's for the best. Wives like that only make for a happy life. Barbara never liked Dora. She thought she was frivolous and selfish. It used to annoy me, but now I realize that the neighbor was right. People from the outside sometimes see things that people close to them don't. In the evening, Barbara was leaving. Come and see me sometime, she said. I'll miss you. I will. And thank you for everything. I couldn't have done it without your help. No, 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 no. Neighbors are supposed to help each other. After she left, I was alone in the big quiet house. I turned on the TV in the living room, but I didn't watch. I just wanted to hear human voices. It was getting dark outside the windows. The lights on the neighboring lots were coming on. The measured life of suburbia, where the most important events are lawn mowing and garbage pickup. The next week, I started setting up a workshop in the basement, removed some of Uncle Frank's tools, made room for automotive equipment, ordered a hoist and compressor, the backbone of any good auto shop. Installation was scheduled for the end of the month. My health gradually improved. I had more energy for longer work. I was tired all the time. My hair started to grow back. In the mirror, I no longer saw a sick man, but just a thin man who was on the mend. On Wednesday, as I was sorting through boxes of tools in the basement, the house phone rang. I hadn't changed Uncle Frank's number yet, so some people were still calling from old memory. Usually it was insurance salesmen or charitable organizations. But this time the voice on the phone made me freeze. Hello, is this Frank Harris's house? A woman with familiar intonations asked. Yes, I answered without identifying myself. Can I ask where Thomas Harris is? I was told he moved to this address. Dora. I hadn't heard her voice in over 3 months, but I would recognize it among 1,000 others. My heart quickened, but not with joy, more with surprise. Kiri, who's asking? I said, still reluctant to reveal myself. It's his wife. I mean ex-wife. I need to talk to him. Just a minute, I said, and put the phone down on the table to think. What does she want? Why did she come back? And most importantly, do I want to see her? 3 months ago, I dreamed of her call, willing to forgive anything to have her back. Now I felt only curiosity and slight irritation. I picked up the phone. Dora, it's me. Tom. She sounded relieved. I've been looking for you for so long. I went to the old house and there were strangers living there. The neighbor said you'd moved here. Barbara. So she gave Dora my new address. I wonder why. What do you want? I asked her straight out. To talk. To explain. Tom, I realized what I did was wrong, but I had my reasons. What reason could a wife have for leaving her sick husband? I didn't. I needed time to think. And when I realized I was wrong, it was too late to make a change over the phone. Time to think. 3 months in Mexico with a lover is a good time to think. What did you realize when I asked? That I love you, that I want to come back. Tom, give me a chance to explain. Can I come over? I looked at my watch. It was about 7 o'clock at night. If she went now, she'd be here in half an hour. Okay, I said. Come over. We'll talk. Thank you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up and I stood in the basement with the phone in my hand, trying to figure out how I felt. Excitement, anger, indifference. It was hard to make sense of my own emotions. One thing was clear. In 20 minutes, the past would be knocking on my new life, and I had to decide what to do with that past. The 20 minutes of waiting stretched like an hour. I went up from the basement to the living room, sat in Uncle Frank's chair by the window, and looked out at the street, expecting to see a familiar car. My heart was beating faster than usual, but not from the anticipation of the meeting, more from uncertainty. 3 months ago, I dreamed of this moment. Now I didn't know how I felt. A lot had changed in that time. I'd been through chemotherapy hell, lost half my body weight, nearly died of despair and loneliness. And then I found the strength to get up, got an unexpected inheritance, moved into a new house, started a new life. Dora was part of the old life, the one that had ended the day she said on the phone that she didn't need a sick husband. At 8:30, a white Toyota Camry pulled up to the house. Not Doreen's car, she drove a blue Honda Accord. Probably rented it or borrowed it from someone. A woman I didn't recognize at first got out of the car. Dora had a tan, very tanned to the dark bronze color that comes only after long exposure to the tropical sun. Her hair was lighter, almost white at the ends, clearly from sea salt and ultraviolet light. She wore a light white dress I hadn't seen before and looked like a tourist from an advertisement for expensive resorts. I opened the door without waiting for the bell to ring. "Hi, Tom," she said quietly, stopping on the threshold. "Hi." We stared at each other for a few seconds. Dora was obviously expecting some kind of reaction, a hug, a question, an emotion. But I felt strangely calm, as if I were meeting an old friend I hadn't seen in a long time. "May I come in?" she asked. "Of course." I stepped aside and she stepped into the hallway. She looked around, taking in the surroundings. "It's a beautiful house," she said. "Much nicer than our old one." Our old one. She still said our, even though she'd made it clear 3 months ago that we had nothing in common anymore. "Come into the living room," I suggested. Dora walked forward, and I couldn't help noticing the change in her gait. She used to walk fast, businesslike, always in a hurry. Now she moved more slowly, more smoothly, like a person who had long lived in the relaxed rhythm of resort life. In the living room, she sat on the sofa, and I sat in the chair opposite. There was a coffee table between us, a small but symbolic distance. "You look good," Dora said, studying my face. "Better than I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. I thought the illness, that you'd look worse." Illness. She said the word carefully, as if it might sting. "The treatment's over," I said. "Remission. The doctors are happy with the results." "They are." She sounded genuinely relieved. "Tom, that's wonderful. So it's all over?" "For now, yes. I'll need regular checkups, but the prognosis is good." Dora smiled, the first real smile she'd had since she'd arrived. "I'm so glad," she said. "I've been thinking about you all the time, worrying about you, worried, being in Mexico with your lover." "Tell me how you're doing," I said. "How was your vacation?" Dora was embarrassed to realize I knew what she was up to. "Tom, about what happened. I understand how it looked, but it wasn't what you think it was." "How was it?" She paused, searching for words. "When you told me about the diagnosis, I was just confused. I was so scared. I thought about what would happen, how our lives would change, and I just panicked." "So you decided to run away with Brad to Mexico?" "Not run away," she protested. "I wanted to take a break, to think, to get my head together. Brad just happened to be there when I needed him. He was there for me. How convenient." "Dora, you remember exactly what you said to me on the phone, don't you?" I asked calmly. "I don't need such a sick husband." That didn't sound like a pause for thought. She blushed, lowered her eyes. I was in shock. People in shock say stupid things. I didn't think you'd take it so seriously. How was I supposed to take it? Like a temporary insanity. Tom, I was scared. Cancer is a scary word. I imagined the chemo, the hospitals, the possible death, and I couldn't handle it. Temporary insanity. A new explanation instead of an honest admission of selfishness. "And how long did this insanity last?" I asked. 3 months? "I was going to come back sooner," Dora said quickly. "Saham. But then I thought it would be better to wait until the treatment was over, to know for sure how it would end. To know for sure. I mean, if the treatment didn't work, she'd never come back." "What happened to Brad?" I asked. Dora wrinkled her nose like a toothache. "It was a mistake. A big mistake. He wasn't what I was looking for." "Who were you looking for?" "I don't know. Support, I guess. Understanding. Someone who wouldn't remind me of sickness and hospitals. And he wasn't the right guy." "Brad," she faltered. "He's rough, and he drinks a lot, and we're just not right for each other." I realized that the first week in Cancun, but it was too late to change. So she enjoyed her first week in paradise with a new man. That's not bad. "Why was it too late?" I asked. "Plane tickets sold out every day." "I didn't have money for a return ticket," she admitted. I'd spent all my savings on the first trip. Brad said that if we were going together, we should come back together. There was no money. So the whole trip was spontaneous. She spent our family savings on it, and she was dependent on a man she didn't even know. And how long were you in Mexico? 2.5 months. First Cancun, then Playa del Carmen, then a few other towns. Brad wanted to go all over the country. 2.5 months honeymooning with my former coworker on money we were saving for a home renovation, while I was on chemo drips. And then I insisted on coming back, said I missed home and work. The truth is, I missed you, missed me, after 2 months of living with another man. And what did Brad say? He wasn't happy, but the tickets were already bought, so I had to go back anyway. Are you two together now? No, Dora exclaimed. No, of course not. We broke up at the Seattle airport. He went back to his place and I went to a friend's house first, and then I looked for you. A friend. Apparently the same friend she was supposedly staying with when she lied to Barbara about our divorce. What do you want? I asked bluntly. Dora straightened up, pulling herself together. I want to apologize and ask her to give us a second chance. We? Me? Give me a second chance. Tom, I know what I did was awful, but people change. People learn from mistakes. I realize you're the most important person in my life. You realize that in Mexico? Yeah, no, I mean, she got confused. I realized it gradually. At first, I thought I did the right thing, that I saved myself from unnecessary suffering. But then I started thinking about our life together, our plans, how happy we were. We were. And we are, Tom. What I did doesn't mean I don't love you. It's just that I was scared. You know, scared to death. Scared to death. That's an unfortunate comparison for someone who's actually faced death. You're not scared now? Chewit. John, you're healthy now. The doctors say you're fine. What if the cancer comes back? Dora was silent. The question clearly took her by surprise. It won't come back, she said finally. You said the prognosis was good. The prognosis is good, but there are no guarantees. The cancer could come back in a year, in 5 years, in 10. It's a chronic disease. But a lot of people live normal lives with it. Yes, they do. The question is, are you ready to live with a person who can get sick again at any moment? Dora was silent for a long time, clearly struggling with herself. I am, she said at last, but her voice sounded uncertain. I stood up and walked to the window. The streetlights were coming on, the neighbors were coming home from work. The measured life of a neighborhood where the main concerns were lawn mowing and trash pickup. A life I was just beginning to build. Tom, what are you thinking about? Dora asked me behind my back. About how life has changed in these months? I know it's been hard, and I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry. She's sorry she was sunning herself on Caribbean beaches while I was fighting cancer. Dora, what do you know about my life in these months? I asked without turning around. I know you've been in treatment, that you sold the house and moved here. A neighbor told me. Barbara. Yeah, she said the house sold very well and that you had better living conditions. Barbara was a diplomat. She didn't tell Dora about my inheritance. It was delicate of her. What else do you know? Nothing else. What else was there? I turned around and looked at her. Dora was sitting on the couch with her hands folded in her lap, waiting for an answer. There was something begging, almost childlike in her posture. In the months since, my Uncle Frank has died, I said. He left me an inheritance. This house, the car, the money. Dora's eyes widened. Really? She asked. So you're, rich now? Rich. Characteristically, it was the money that interested her, not the death of a relative. Not rich but wealthy, I answered. I can afford not to work for a while. I can invest in business. Tom, that's wonderful, she exclaimed, and there was a familiar liveliness in her voice. It means we'll be able to live much better than before. We again. Dora, there is no we anymore, I said calmly. But it could be. Tom, that's why I came here. To fix things, to start over. What do you think you need to fix? My stupidity, my selfishness. I'm ready to change, ready to be a better wife. To be a better wife. like it's a profession you can learn from a self-teaching book. What exactly are you ready to change? Everything. I will support you in everything. Take care of your health, help you with your business. I'll be the perfect wife. The perfect wife. Dora always had a problem with realism. What if the cancer comes back? It won't. But what if it does? She hesitated a moment, then nodded decisively. I'll be there for you. I'll look after you. I'll fight with you. Like Barbara looked after her husband? Yes, like Barbara. She said it quickly without thinking, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. Dora had never been able to take care of our houseplants, and they died regularly, let alone caring for a sick person. Dora, why did you decide to come back now? I asked. Why? I explained. I realized I had made a mistake. No, I mean, why now? And not a month ago or a month from now? She hesitated again. Yeah, I wanted to make sure you were healthy and that you were ready for a serious relationship. Weren't you ready before? I was an idiot before, a scared fool. That was closer to the truth than any of her previous explanations. And you're not an idiot now? I realize now that I almost lost the most precious thing in my life. What was that? You. I sat back in my chair. Dora leaned forward as if physical proximity could make her words more convincing. Tom, give me a chance. One chance to make things right. I know I don't deserve to be forgiven, but what are you willing to do to prove your sincerity? I interrupted. Anything. Like what? Well, signing some papers saying I'll never leave you again. Or, or give up some of my assets in the divorce if things go wrong again. Papers. Dora thought human relationships were settled by contracts. Why do you need a relationship? I asked. Honestly, because I love you. And what else? Nothing else. Just love. I looked into her eyes and tried to see the woman I had once fallen in love with. But all I saw was a tanned stranger who said the right words with the wrong intonation. Dora, you do realize that trust isn't rebuilt at the snap of a finger, right? I do. But time heals. We can start small, go out, have dinner together, gradually rebuild intimacy. Like getting reacquainted. Yes, exactly. She was happy to see the hope in my words. We can pretend we're meeting for the first time. Forget the bad. Remember only the good. Forget the bad. It would be great if memory worked like a computer file that could be deleted with a click. Where do you live now? I asked. At a friend's place for now. But it's temporary. I'm looking for an apartment. And work? Doctor. Reeves took me back. I had to explain my extended absence with a family emergency. Family emergency. That's what they call a honeymoon with a lover in Mexico now. Do you have any money? Dora's blushing. It's a little tight right now. Spent a lot on the trip. But I'm working. I'm getting by. She spent our family savings on a vacation with another man, and now she's broke. Makes sense. We were silent for a few minutes. Dora was waiting for my answer, and I was trying to sort out my own feelings. There was almost no anger. It surprised me. 3 months ago, I'd been ready to kill her for betraying me. Now I felt more tired than angry. Tired of trying to understand the logic of her actions. Tom, say something, she said at last. I need time to think, I said. How much time? I don't know. It's a tough decision. Nahanai, but you're not saying no right away? Is there a chance? I looked at her, tanned, rested, hopeful about getting back together, and I realized I'd already made my decision, but I didn't want to say it out loud yet. After Dora left, I sat in the living room for a long time, staring out the window at the dark street. Her car had disappeared toward the main road, leaving behind only the faint smell of cheap perfume, not the kind she'd used before, but some kind of sugary sweet perfume, obviously bought at a duty-free shop in some Mexican airport. I gave her a week to think about it, telling her I needed time to consider her offer. In fact, the decision had been made during our conversation, but it seemed cruel to announce it right away. Let her live for a few days with hope. It was enough that I had lived for 3 months in despair. But the more I thought about her words, the clearer I realized. It was definitively over between us. Not because I couldn't forgive the betrayal. Time does heal, and the pain of her departure had long since dulled. It was just that we had become different people. I went through illness, loneliness, near death, and found the strength to survive. Dora spent 3 months at a tropical resort and realized only that life with a well-off, healthy man was better than with an auto mechanic. The next day, I called a divorce lawyer, Mr. Davis, who had been recommended to me by Mr. Fisher. James Davis turned out to be a man in his 50s with an accommodating voice and a straightforward manner. Your situation is pretty standard, he explained during the consultation. The wife has left the family home, has been absent for 3 months. There are witnesses that she lives with another man. The grounds for divorce are more than sufficient. How long will the process take? In the absence of disputed property and children, 3 months. We file the papers, wait for a response from the wife, hold a hearing. If she does not object, everything will go quickly and peacefully. And if she does, then longer. But given the circumstances of the case, the court will still decide in your favor. We discuss the details: division of property, alimony, the procedure for filing documents. Turns out the Bellevue house we bought when we were married is technically joint property, and Dora's entitled to half the proceeds from the sale. Uncle Frank's inheritance received after the actual separation remains mine alone. But given that the wife left the family on her own initiative, you can expect a reduction in her share, Mr. Davis explained, especially if you provide evidence that she spent the family money on a trip with a lover. I had proof. Bank statements showed that Dora had withdrawn $8,000 in cash the day she left. The money we were saving for roof repairs. File the paperwork, I decided. The sooner the better. On Thursday, Dora called. Her voice was tense, nervous. Tom, I've been thinking about our conversation, she said. I have some ideas about how we can repair the relationship. What kind of ideas? I want to go to couples therapy. With you. To have a psychologist help us work through our problems and find solutions. Family therapy. Dora always likes simple solutions to complex problems. What do you think a psychologist would say to a woman who left her husband diagnosed with cancer? I asked. Help me understand why I did what I did, and teach me how to avoid similar mistakes in the future. Dora, some mistakes can't be undone. Yes, they can. People forgive each other for much more serious things. Cheating, betrayal, even crimes. Why can't we forgive 1 minute of panic? 1 minute of panic that lasted 3 months. Because it's not about forgiveness, I said. It's about not trusting you anymore. But trust can be rebuilt. Theoretically, yes. But I don't want to spend years of my life on it. There was silence on the phone. Tom, you sound like you've made up your mind, Dora said quietly. Yes, I have. What have you decided? That we're getting a divorce. Officially. I've already filed the papers. Dora gasped. How could you file for divorce without me? Oh, it was easy. You went to a lawyer, filled out the paperwork, paid the filing fee. But I told you I want to reconcile. I'm asking you to give us a chance. And I refuse. Why? The question sounded almost desperate. Dora really did not understand why her sincere desire to make things right was not accepted with joy. Because I don't love you anymore, I said honestly. You don't? She interjected. Tom, we were married for 8 years. Love doesn't disappear in 3 months. It does? The moment the person you love says, I don't need a sick husband like that. But I explained. I was panicking. Dora, that's enough. My decision is final. If you get a summons, come or don't come, as you wish. But we're getting a divorce either way. And if I object, that's your right, but it won't change the outcome. I hung up and turned off the phone. I was tired of hearing explanations and excuses. I was tired of pretending to consider reconciliation. One weekend, as I was setting up my basement workshop, there was a knock at the door. On the threshold stood an unfamiliar woman of about 35, slender, dark-haired, with a pleasant face and intelligent eyes. In her hands, she held a large pot covered with a kitchen towel. I'm sorry to bother you, she said. I'm your neighbor, Emily Chen. I live in that house over there. She pointed to the blue house across the street. I made too much soup, and I thought you could use some. That's very nice of you, I replied, accepting the pot. Thomas Harris. I know. Frank told me about you. He was very proud of his nephew. You knew my uncle? We were neighbors for 5 years. He was a good man, just very private. I'm sorry he's gone. Emily spoke with a slight accent, probably of Asian origin, but her English was impeccable. Do you have a family? I asked. I had one, divorced 6 months ago. Now I live alone, like your uncle. She smiled sadly. I guess that's why we became friends. Lonely people understand each other. Do you have children? No. You? No. We stood on the doorstep, studying each other. Emily was a good-looking woman, not a dazzling beauty like Dora when she was young, but with that quiet attractiveness that is not immediately obvious, but gets better on closer inspection. What are you doing? She asked. Frank said you were a mechanic. Yeah, I'm going to open up an auto shop right here. I'm going to convert the basement into a shop. That's a great idea. We don't have a good auto shop in the neighborhood, so we have to go downtown. What do you do for a living? I'm a doctor. I'm a family doctor at a clinic on Main Street. A doctor. A man who's dedicated his life to healing people. How different from Dora, who was a receptionist, and her main concern was getting the patient's appointments right. If you have any car trouble, feel free to ask, I offered. A neighbor's discount is guaranteed. Thanks, I will. In the meantime, try the soup. It's a family recipe, chicken broth with noodles and ginger. It's a cure-all. After she left, I warmed up the soup and tried it. It was really good. Much better than Dora's, and even better than Barbara's. The broth smelled of ginger, garlic, some herbs I couldn't identify. A home-cooked meal, prepared with skill and care. A week later, the summons came for Dora. I knew about it because Mr. Davis had warned in advance. That same day in the evening, Dora drove to the house again. This time not alone, but with some friend driving. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Tom, we need to talk, Dora said without preamble. I got the papers from the court. So? So what? You filed for divorce without even telling me. I did. Last Thursday on the phone. I thought you were joking. I never joke about serious things. Dora's friend, a full-figured woman in her 40s, stood by the car, clearly ready to intervene if necessary. Apparently, Dora was afraid to come alone. Tom, let's talk quietly, Dora asked, without witnesses. No, we've said everything we need to say. But you can't just ruin 8 years of marriage. You ruined them. I'm just doing the paperwork. I'm willing to do anything. Any concessions, any terms. Anything. Yes. Then don't object to the divorce. It's the only condition I'm interested in, Dora cried. Not theatrically, but genuinely. I guess she finally realized that I was serious. Tom, please, she sobbed. I know I was a fool, but people change. People change, I agreed. I've changed. I don't want to be married to you anymore. Who do you want to be married to? She asked me suddenly when she stopped crying. No one yet. Maybe someday I'll meet a woman who won't leave me at the first difficulty. Such a woman doesn't exist. Yes, there is. And there are many such women. I just haven't paid attention to them before. Dora wiped her tears and looked at me carefully. Do you have someone else? Not yet, but I might have someone. Then I do, she exclaimed. I knew it. You filed for divorce because you found someone else. Dora, I filed for divorce because you left me for Brad. Remember Brad? The man you spent 3 months in Mexico with? That hit the mark. Dora was silent because there was nothing to remind her. Okay, she said finally. If you want a divorce so badly, I won't object. But I want a fair division of the property. You'll get what's rightfully yours, including half of the sale of the house in Bellevue. Including, and this house, she pointed to Uncle Frank's house. This house is my inheritance, nothing to do with you. And your uncle's money? Also an inheritance, Dora nodded, obviously calculating the sums in her head. Half of the sale of the house in Bellevue was about $150,000. Not bad money to start a new life. All right, she said. Goodbye then, Tom. I hope you'll be happy. You too, she turned and walked to the car. Her friend put her arm around her shoulders, whispering something in her ear. The car drove away, and I realized that I had seen Dora for the last time as a husband. Next time we would meet in court as ex-spouses. Strangely, I didn't feel any sadness. Only relief that at last I had put an end to a relationship that had effectively ended 3 months ago. The next day, a truck loaded with workshop equipment pulled up to the house. 2 workers set up the hoist in the basement, hooked up the compressor, and helped set up workbenches and tool cabinets. By evening, I had a full-fledged machine shop as good as the one in Bellevue. Jim Rodriguez came to see the new stuff and was impressed. "Oh, man," he exclaimed as he looked at the elevator. "Like in a real service. Now we can do serious work." "I plan to specialize in premium brands," I said. "There are a lot of expensive cars in the area and not enough quality workshops." "That's right. The rich pay well for quality. And you'll be my first customer. Someone has to try out the new equipment." "I will. I got a box that's acting up." We had a beer sitting in the garage next to the new elevator. Jim talked about news from the old neighborhood. Who moved, who got married, who got divorced. Habitual guy talk that didn't require deep emotion or philosophical musings. On Wednesday, Emily brought another dish, chicken and rice casserole. "I overcooked again," she explained with a smile. "I keep forgetting that I'm cooking for myself now." "How long ago did you get divorced?" 6 months. My husband wasn't what he seemed at first." "I see. I'm going through a divorce too. My wife left me when she found out she was diagnosed with cancer." Emily frowned. "Really? I mean, that's awful. How could you leave someone at a time like that?" She was scared. Not everyone is ready for the ordeal. "How's your health now?" "Remission. The doctors are happy with the results of the treatment." "That's wonderful," Emily said sincerely. "Oncology is a serious thing, but modern medicine works wonders." I like that she said it calmly, professionally, without pity or false optimism. Doctors know how to respond appropriately to medical problems. "What did your husband turn out to be wrong?" I asked. "An alcoholic. He hid it for the first 2 years, then he stopped. I tried to help him, but alcoholism can be treated only if the patient wants it." "And there was no desire?" "There was a desire to drink. Nothing else mattered." Emily spoke without bitterness, stating the facts. Apparently, medical practice taught her to take human weaknesses as a given. "Did you have children?" "We planned to, but it didn't work out. It's probably for the best. A child shouldn't grow up with an alcoholic father." We were standing on the porch in the evening gloom. Emily was wearing a simple denim jacket and a white t-shirt, her hair in a sloppy ponytail. No makeup, unadorned, but very attractive in her naturalness. "Have you thought about children?" she asked. "We had. We planned to have them after 35. But it didn't work out. I'm still old enough. If you meet the right woman." "Are you planning to remarry?" "Not yet. I need time to recover from my divorce. Then we'll see." Time to recover. The smart approach is not to jump into a new relationship right after an old one ends. "If you have any car problems, don't hesitate to call me," I repeated. "The workshop is ready." "Thank you. And if you have any health problems, come to me. I'll do the initial examination free of charge." "It's a deal." She smiled and went home. I watched her crossing the road and thought that I had not met a woman with whom it was so easy and natural to talk for a long time. A month later, the divorce hearing was held. Dora came with her lawyer, I came with Mr. Davis. The procedure took half an hour. The judge found out the circumstances of the case, made sure that both parties agreed to the divorce, approved the agreement on the division of property. "The marriage between Thomas Harris and Dora Harris is dissolved," announced the judge. "The judgment will take effect in 30 days. That's it." 8 years of living together ended with a 30-second announcement in the courtroom. Dora walked out of the courthouse without saying a word. Apparently, she realized there was nothing to say anyway. That same night, Emily invited me to dinner. "I want to celebrate the end of your divorce," she said. "It's a big event, the beginning of a new life." "How do you know this place?" "Small town. News travels fast." We had dinner at her house, a comfortable, cozy, tasteful place. Emily had prepared fish and vegetables and white wine. A gourmet meal, a far cry from the pizza and Chinese takeout I'd been eating for the past few months. "To new life," she said, raising her glass. "To a new life," I repeated. We drank, and I thought about the fact that a new life had already begun. The illness had receded, the divorce was finalized, the business was ready to launch. And there is a woman who understands the value of simple human relationships built on mutual respect and support. "And what's next?" Emily asked over dessert. "Next, I will work, restore my health, organize the house." "That's it?" What else? Personal life, relationships, family maybe. I looked at her carefully. There was more to the question than just interest. Are you ready for a relationship with a man who's had cancer? I asked bluntly. I am, she answered without hesitation. Disease doesn't define a man. It's how he deals with it that defines him. What if the cancer comes back? We'll fight it together. I'm a doctor. I know a thing or two about medicine. Together. It sounded so natural, like we'd been a couple for a long time, not just neighbors who'd known each other for a few weeks. Emily, aren't we a little early to be talking about this stuff? It's probably a little early, she agreed. But life is unpredictable. Sometimes it's better to talk about important things right away than to regret not saying anything. Is that professional experience? Life experience. Too often I've seen people who didn't have time to say the most important thing to each other. We finished our wine in comfortable silence. Outside the window, the streetlights were turning on. An ordinary quiet evening in a suburban neighborhood was beginning. But for me, this evening was special. The first evening of a new life in the company of a woman who could be a part of that life. Maybe we should take our time, I suggested. Meet, get to know each other, see what happens. That's a good idea, Emily agreed. We have time. Yeah, we had time, and health, and the desire to build a relationship on an honest basis. After all we'd been through, it seemed like a gift. Perhaps some of you also went through serious trials in relationships. Betrayal, illness, loss. How did you find the strength to give love a second chance? Tell us in the comments. Is it worth giving a new relationship a chance after serious disappointments, or is it better to be alone for a while? Your stories can help others to make the right decision in similar situations.